Hi. Ugh. 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 Maya wanted to join us for this one at the beginning here. She has been up talking since, what'd you get? About 4 in the morning, huh? Oh, now you're tired. She did have a long sleep under the stars, strapped to Dad's chest as we walked around and got some of the Pleiades on her crown, tuned into the sacred hoop of stars, and saw that bright Jupiter, Mars, and Saturn, huh? She's definitely starting to notice Jupiter in the morning, which is amazing. So this is Maya. She's a 3. And what would your name be? Yeah, we're going to talk number magic a little bit today, friends. Why? Because it's 9, 12, 24, and also circumstances yesterday did not allow me to go live for Storytelling Hour. So I wanted to come on here and share a bit. Thanks for tuning in. If you are, I wonder what your number is. So there's many ways to answer that question, right? In some of the numerological traditions, we might find your number from the day of the month upon which you were born. We might find a number by adding the number of the day and the number of the month. We might find your number by adding the number of the day, the month, and the year. And then reducing that to its digital root. We might find your number by adding all of the letters of your name and their corresponding numbers in the numerological tradition. Have you done that before? We might find your number by adding the vowels of your name or the consonants of your name. Have you done that one before? So what's your number? And I see some of you here live. If you know, let's hear it. I'm a 2 and a 5. You know, amazingly, I was born Brett. I don't share it often. Brett Arlington Joseph, which reduces to 5. And then my moniker, Gemini Brett, didn't know this when it chose me, but also reduces to 5. Now, your number might also just be a number that jumps off the screen at you, or that you see all the time, or that you hear, or that you know is on the clock. Maya's showing O right there. Is that your number, honey? What's your number? All right. Well, what's inspiring this chat today? Besides that, I want to chat. We just saw Mercury. And he's like, go talk about it a bit. We saw Mercury in Virgo. Let's talk about some of the sacred systems. And while I love to say that astrology is so much more than some symbolic language alone. Hi. Glue. Glue. That astrology is so much more than some symbolic language alone. Astrology is the poetic breath of nature, right? The astronomical side of our craft, the embodied side. There is a beautiful, real, natural fabric to astrology. It's one of the things that I love so much about it, right? But is it purely astronomical? And the answer is absolutely not. I mean, so much of what I do is working symbolically, even in some regards, working symbolically with time. Now, some claim that time is purely symbolic, that time is an illusion. I'm sure you've heard that one, maybe tuned into that one. Hi, honey, how are you doing? What about calendar constructs? What about the idea that tomorrow is Friday, the 13th? Well, I mean, who decided Friday? Who first decided that there are 7 days in a week and named them for the 7 visible planets? I mean, it seems to go back to Babylon, maybe even earlier. But how do we know that we've stayed consistent since? And what a weird thing as well, that often for me, when it's, Thursday, it's Friday across the date line, right? You know what I'm talking about, baby. I'm not sure you're going to last for this jam, but I bet you somebody's going to come grab you pretty soon here. We probably need to involve you a little bit more. Ugga. 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 Can we talk about your name? You know, your name starts with an M, and M is the 13th letter of the alphabet. If you're using the English alphabet, why should we only use the English alphabet? Huh? What's your birth date? Huh? June 15th, 2024? If we're using the Gregorian calendar, why should we use the Gregorian calendar? I don't even know that guy, Greg. You know what I mean? Friday the 13th, what an interesting trip. For those who are keeping the Julian calendar, that didn't go with the Pope's update in the 16th century. It's not Friday the 13th tomorrow. It would still be Friday, but not the 13th. Thanks for showing up on the live stream, honey. I'm going to talk about your numbers a little bit, okay? All right, love you. Right. Let's get down to business. Oh, we have and she talks. Yeah, she sure does. And that started really early this morning. And maybe that we can find that in her number. Like her mama, she's a 3. If you're into that whole Gregorian trip. Okay. So tomorrow, Friday the 13th. Now, of course, Friday the 13th has all of this like shadowy, superstitious baggage, right? Where does that come from? Was it from the time that the Templars were burned at the cross, right? That's a date that's often invoked when speaking about the painful kind of resonance of Friday the 13th, because it was a 13th, I think, in October, and a Friday when that torching happened. Well, of course, so many were burned. Most of them were not men, right? And it would feel perhaps that this demonization of Friday the 13th really comes from the kind of patriarchal demonization of the feminine. Why would I say that? Because Friday is Venus's day. Lady Love. Lady, right? And the 13th has, in many traditions, been known as a goddess number. Now, some will teach you that this is because there are 13 moons in a year, but there aren't, or there are, kind of. So let's be there for a bit. Why is 13 a lunar number? Some say 12 is a solar number, and 13 is a lunar number. Is there any reality to that? Because as I engage with time, I like to do that through space. Time and space are completely linked. And that's why I'm so excited to speak with you on 9/12/24. 12 hours in a day or a night, 24 hours together, 12 signs. I mean, are these things completely arbitrary? Or is there something to it? Is time real? I mean, I'm wrinkling and graying myself, and it's harder to stay in shape than it once was. Is that just because I've fallen prey to the idea of time, or because we incarnate into bodies that are meant to wisen, you know? We are on a spinning planet that spins in a period of time, a day. Now, we could look at a day in the Earth spin with relationship to a fixed star, a sidereal day, which is slightly shorter than the Earth's rotation with respect to that star of ours, the sun, the solar day. And that's an interesting truth. So even what's a day, right? You'll see if you follow astrology like I do that 0 Aries is not at the midheaven 24 hours after it previously was, but rather more like 23 hours and 56 minutes. And that brings us into sidereal versus solar in that, but they're close. Like, so 24 hours the day, right? Well, what about the year? What is the year? But the Earth orbiting the sun, or from our point of view, the appearance of the sun getting around us and on this plane, this ecliptic plane, where we find 12 signs. Why? Is that just completely a construct? Why wouldn't we do 10? We hear from Sheila here in the Toltec system, 13 is number magic, 13 levels of creation, right? So in many of the, well, to use a modern term, Mesoamerican systems do a lot of number magic with 13 and with 20 and with other numbers that seem a little unfamiliar in the West, right? The quote unquote West. So, I mean, if we just created zodiac, why not 10 signs? I mean, weren't you and I taught in school that we use a base 10 number system because the human design has these 10 fingers on the 2 hands? Well, in Sumeria and Babylonia, right, it was a sexagesimal system, 60, not 10. And we still see a lot of that, right? Because actually, well before the hour, which had long been 24, and interestingly, from many traditions, 24 hours in a day, well before the hour was carved up into 60 minutes, the degrees were carved up into 60 arc minutes, and those 60 arc minutes, each of them into 60 arc seconds in that, right? So actually the division of space into sexagesimal minutes and seconds, well, like centuries and centuries and centuries predates the division of time that you and I are so familiar with, the idea of 24 hours in a day, 60 minutes in an hour, 60 seconds in a minute. Go find out how old that is. You might be surprised. And I mean, it seems totally arbitrary, right? Why this 12? Why not 10? Well, first of all, you do have 12 here, friends. So what you do is you use your thumb as the pointer and then count the pads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then 5 of those make 60. Maybe that's the root. By the way, the thumb doesn't have 3, it has 2, right? So I can go Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. I usually like to go a different way with that. Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. I usually like to go Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. Actually lets me work the horizons in some interesting ways. And then I get my solstice points here at the kind of tips and the equinox here where the fingers meet the palm. That seems kind of arbitrary. That will, if you know, like where the signs live on the fingertips in regards to many of the palm reading traditions, you'll see that that's a different thing. But I always like to do them astronomically. And we do get that image of 12ness with 4 threes and 3 fours, right? So triplicity, quadruplicity, you get the polarity here, maybe here in the 2 and the thumb. But the 2 and the thumb, it gives you what? 12, 13, 14. Well, 14 days of the waxing moon and 14 days of the waning moon, right? Wrong. The lunation, the phases of the moon are not on a 28-day period. That is one thing that is often inaccurately taught. They're not lying to you, they're just ignorant. So how much time is there between consecutive new moons? And the answer is about 29 and a half days. That's a pretty tricky number to work with. Now you can do it here, by the way. What you do is 14 days, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 days of the waxing moon. And then you do full moon and 14 days of the waning moon. And that's 29. 14, 15, and another 14 make 29. Okay, but it's 29 and a half. So what you do is every other cycle, you also need a symbol for your new moon, right? So you go 14 waxing, full, 14 waning, new. 14 waxing, full, 14 waning. 14 waxing, full, 14 waning, new. 14 waxing, full, 14 waning. 14 waxing, full, 14 waning, new. Do you see how that works? And by the way, 29 and a half is also an estimate. The closer number of the average time between consecutive moon-sun conjunctions or new moons is 29.53059 days. We couldn't crack that code until we really tracked this thing for a long time and created the decimal system. Like, that's a pretty hard thing to show as a fraction, right? How old are decimals? Well, decimal, by the way, has 10 in its name. Don't let December as the 12th month throw you off. So anyway, 29 and a half days. This is a frequency that has been used to tune calendars for a long, long time. If you actually want your months on the calendar to align with months, in other words, the phases of the moon, then what you do is you alternate between months of 30 and months of 29. And that, of course, those 59 days for 2 months keeps the 29 and a half day average pace. And so when you look to some of the great solely lunar traditions that we find from the Chinese calendar, for example, the Hebrew calendar, which came from the Akkadian, which came from the Babylonian, right? You find months that work this way, alternating between months of 30 and 29 days. And I guess in Gregorian time and Julian time, which predates that, maybe there's a little bit of an honoring of that, like a throwback, because in leap years, we know the month of February has 29, not 28 days. Well, there is no lunar cycle that is 28 days long. 28 is convenient, being 4 weeks, because we do have this very interesting and ancient code of 7 days in a week. However, that's not how it was in ancient Rome. Or, yeah, I mean, before the Julian calendar came around, they were using like 10-day periods. And we find that in other places too, in some of the Egyptian traditions, for example. What about systems that work with numbers like 13 and 20? So, I mean, so much of this does seem to have to do with maybe arbitrary invention. So how much do we want to How much stock do we want to put into our numerology? Well, what about you? How does it speak to you? Have you calculated your number based upon a Gregorian birth date? Is it meaningful to you? Have you calculated a number based upon the alphabet on your birth record? I was born in Boston, Massachusetts. It's the English language, and so I play with my full name and English, number magic. And it says a thing and seems to work. But even if I come down to 5 with my name, what is 5? All right. Well, before we go there, the 5, 8, 13 might be an important part of the 13 number magic. Let's return to this idea of a solely lunar calendar. So alternating between months of 30 and 29 days keeps pace with lunar phase. Now, I should say that most of the traditions that work that way originally did not start the month with the moon-sun conjunction. Why? Because unless that's a solar eclipse, and we've got one coming our way, unless it's a solar eclipse and it's daytime and you happen to be on that part of Earth that is shadowed, then a new moon is a no moon. You can't see the moon when she conjoins the sun. Every month, right? The moon goes into the flames for the fire trial, right? And then is reborn in the sunset west as the sliver crescent, the young moon in Hawaii, Hilo moon, which means first. Diana's bow, right? That young maiden moon of Diana's bow who shoots arrows at her Apollo brother who is set below. Right? And so the moon every month is reborn in the west after sunset. And this, by the way, is why many of these solar-lunar traditions begin their days not at sunrise, which would seem to make sense, or midday when the shadow is shortest, or the middle of the night, which seems really strange, but it is when the sun begins his daily climb, but rather at sunset time. Why? Because that's where we find the first moon of the month. And from there, she waxes away from the sun. In the northern hemisphere sky, by the way, that's waxing from the right to the left in the sunset sky, right? Globally, it's from the west to the east, and the moon's smile will increase from that sliver crescent on the western side of her face to the full O, right? From the west to the east, which in the northern hemisphere sky is right to left. When we're looking at the sunset sky, when the stars come to play, we will see the moon wax away from the sun from the right to the left. And it's why I'm convinced, why, from what I've seen, all of these solar-lunar traditions from the northern hemisphere have right to left script, or at least right in both directions. So there's that for you. It's also why I feel that some of these solely lunar calendar traditions have a new year around autumnal equinox. Why? Because autumn is the sunset of the year. So the day, the root, sun beneath the ground at the IC, the rise, the reach, midday, and the rest, sunset. Right? So day and night, we have divisions into two-ness that are undeniably part of the human experience. But we also have, with the meridian, the north-south line that divides the eastern sky that goes up from the western sky that goes down, we have very clear quadrants beneath the ground coming up, or so we think. We can't see, but we do know that, at least astrologically, when the sun reaches the second house, traditionally called the gate of Hades, we start to see some announcement that the day is not beginning, but will. And even some birds start getting a little too excited, and my baby did this morning, right? And then sunrise, right? And then we have the sun above the ground coming up. Fourth quadrant above the ground going down. Third quadrant. beneath the ground going down, second quadrant, or so we think. We can never see the sun moving through the underworld, and then beneath the ground coming up the first quadrant. And it might seem really strange that the sun would rise into the fourth quadrant, not to the first. It might seem really strange that the sun would rise into the 12th house, not into the first. But in a chart, we've stopped time, right? And we've nailed it to that cross of the horizon and the meridian, right? And so which stars in a birth chart will be first to rise after that moment? And the answer is the stars in the first. Which will be last? And the answer is the stars in the 12th, because they are going to have to reach up and then rest down and then root down below, and then 3, 2, 1 lift off, right? They've risen most recently, and so they will be 12th to rise, because 12th is last. Well, where the heck did that come from? Maybe these 4 3s. Maybe. Where's the 13 on that? Okay, well, let's play a little bit more with the sun and the moon. So in so many solely lunar calendar traditions that actually align their months with the moons, and I use that term to describe the visible phases of the moon. Moon smile growing on the solar half, waxing, and then shrinking on the lunar half of the cycle, the waning moon, which on average is 29 and a half days. And so we create alternating 30-day and 29-day months to keep that 29 and a half day pace. Okay. Well, how many of those in a solar year? Solar year, 365 days, right? No, 365 and a quarter days, right? No, that's what Julian thought. That's what the Julian calendar worked with, but turns out it didn't keep the pace, because the year is more like 365.242199 days. But who's counting? We are, if we care about space-time, and I do. And I don't only do this mathematically, though I will say I'm out with calendars and calculators like more than most. But I do this experientially. I want to practice earth astrology. I want to have an embodied experience. So this morning I was out connecting with Regulus, which I could not do 2 weeks ago. And a month ago, I saw Regulus over here after sunset. Now Regulus is over here before sunrise. What? Right? I want to have an embodied experience of the sun moving through the constellations and the fixed stars. And by the way, friends, if you're in the constellations community, I will very shortly from now be posting 2 updates to the Deccan Walk portion of your resources page. And if you're in constellations, go to geminibrett.com/star people to get to all the recordings of the classes, like the brilliant Astro Tarot class that was offered by Phelan Shiva last night, or the Pluto's Last Dance in Capricorn and the coming outer planet aligned lunar eclipse class that I offered last Saturday, or the Astro Herbalism classes offered by Amala Hall, or the Astro Embodiment practices offered by Alyssa Luna. I've maybe said it too many times without it quite happening yet, but pretty soon we will be opening a reading exchange circle in Constellations, which is going to be an amazing opportunity to practice offering astrological counsel and receiving astrological counsel. So if you are not currently in the School of Astrology's membership community, which is called Constellations, and you type in geminibrett.com/star people, it's just going to ask you for a password you don't have yet. Okay, but you can get that by signing up. So geminibrett.com/constellations is the place to do that if you want to support this work. I got a baby, as I think you just saw. And more importantly, if you want to connect in fellowship with like-minded and like-hearted beings, fellow students of the stars, Constellations is a wonderful place for you. Check it out. $16 a month for so much, including if you come in now, you're going to find not only these deck and walk videos I said, but recordings of all the classes that have been offered since we started it, including like a 7-hour deep dive series of master classes on eclipses and eclipse cycles. Speaking of, let me throw one more link in the chat before I return to our conversation here, which is geminibrett.com/shadow. I am currently running an eclipse special, 60-minute eclipse session for $108. If you know something about the dragons and the sun, moon, earth situation, then you will know why 108. To tune in with you to how this coming series of eclipses, so let me say set of eclipses, and we can go into their series, into the eclipse families. We can look at your prenatal eclipse family. It's, you know, the theme is eclipses, but there's so much that we can do with eclipses and eclipse cycles. And use that link, geminibrett.com/shadow, get a discounted eclipse session, and we will tune in. Okay, I'm only speaking about that on these live streams. All right. So, all right. Back to the sun and the moon and the earth. Back to the idea of space, time, and time, space. Is it even a thing? Because this is going to help us honor Friday the 13th. And it's going to help us honor 9/12/24. Happy 9/12/24 to you, friends, if you're into that whole Gregorian trip. Or the Enneagram, or, you know, the signs, of which there are 12 and certainly not 13. But some say there are only 12 because the patriarchy came and destroyed the feminine and ancient wisdom that, of course, there are 13 moons in a year. Are there? Okay, so to keep the lunation, the phases of the moon, as the sacred structure for the months of your calendar, to align your months to the moons, because the average period between moon-sun conjunctions is 29.5 days, we alternate between consecutive or months of 30 and 29 days, 30, 29, 30, 29, 30, 29. All right, well, what's 12 of those? What's 12 times 29.5? Yeah, there's going to be a little bit of calculator play. Should we do that one together? 59 times 6, 29.5 times 12, 354. So if you are keeping pace with the phases of the moon, the moons, to describe the length of months in your cosmic calendar, you have a year of 354 days. What's the issue? That ain't a year, son, because the year is not about the moon or the phases of the moon, which, by the way, aren't just moon, are they? They're moon reflecting sunlight. To where? To Earth. Right? So the phase of the moon is so brilliant because they are the three parts of the philosophy: spirit, soul, and matter, circle, crescent, and cross, sun, moon, and earth. Right? But the year is not sun, moon, earth. It is sun, earth. Right? So, I mean, it's a brilliant thing to plant and harvest by the phases of the moon. But if you want honoring the seasons first and foremost, you're done, you're cooked, right? Like that will not work for too long. You better also have a solar calendar, a strictly solar calendar. You know, an interesting truth, and I didn't learn this till this year, right? It's the year of the dragon. So one thing I know about my baby Maya is she's a dragon. I'm a rabbit. Hello. So is her mother. Well, interestingly, you know, the Chinese New Year ceremonies, which have to do with what? The new moon around the beginning of spring. But when is the beginning of the spring? March equinox, right? No, Not in China. It's at the solar term, halfway between solstice and equinox. And by the way, there's no moon in that description or in that criteria. It's all Earth and Sun. So in the solar calendar from that tradition, we divide the 365 days of the year. Oh, no, sorry, 365.25 days in the, oh, no. 365.242199 days in a year. No, we don't. We divide the 360 degrees in the year. The best calendar there is, my friends, it's called the tropical zodiac. Right? As we orbit the sun, this is not circular. No orbits are. We can see this as the sun orbiting us about the ecliptic plane with its 12, not 13 signs. Well, that's not a circle, it's an ellipse. We're closest to the sun in January and furthest away in July, at least in our day and age, and at least within the context of the Gregorian calendar, if you're into that trip. But regardless, there are times like when the sun is in tropical Sagittarius and Capricorn, where the sun is moving most quickly through the zodiac, and times when the sun moves most slowly, and that's like the Gemini Cancer suns. If you're into that whole tropical zodiac trip, and I am, because like so many sacred systems of ancient wisdom traditions, it is Earth zodiac, the tropical zodiac, that is directionally aligned. I would even suggest it's directionally defined. It is not constellational. It is not seasonal. It is directional. And Earth is moving north through space. This is one of the reasons why the tropical zodiac, which I believe emanates from something deep beneath our feet, works globally despite the seasonal opposition between northern and southern hemispheres and the significant seasonal differences even between where I used to live in Seattle and here in the Bay Area of California, where I can actually see the stars that I'm so in love with. So a 360-degree calendar, though it's not entirely consistent, or the rate of the sun's travel through the degrees is not fixed because not a circle but an ellipse, still the sun moves about 1 degree per day. It's something that we can track. And then we divide that 360-degree course into 12 sunths, not of 30 days each. Some are 31. Oh, wait, maybe the Gregorian 31-30 thing isn't completely just patriarchal nonsense like you're taught by the New Cage. Oh, maybe there's something to the 30-31. Why? Because the average pace for the sun to move through a sign, which is a 12th part of the zodiac circle, the path of the year, dividing that 360-degree circle into 12 slices, equal slices of 30 degrees. Well, the average time it takes the sun to move through a 30-degree slice of sky, a sunth, is 30.44 days. Somewhere right between 30 and 31. Now, the way that they alternate the 30s and 31s is interesting, and there's, I would suggest, much better ways to do it, but you can't give Julius or Augustus short days, could you? All right. And for some reason, Oct 8 is the 10th month and all that weirdness. I'm not saying the Gregorian calendar or the Julian calendar from which it was derived is in any way perfect or beautiful, but I am also suggesting that some of this trash that you hear from New Cagers around 12 signs is like the patriarchal attack of the feminine and the indigenous 13 moon wisdom. Ain't indigenous wisdom. And in fact, I suggest that it's absolutely offensive to indigenous star keepers because they were so much more aligned to the actual workings of the heavens. And when you are, you don't fall prey for that 13 moons a year thing because you just experience 12.369. Okay, so let me be there again. So we were back. Let's go back to this idea of keeping months aligned with the moons, with the phases, right? So we're alternating between 30 and 29 days, 30, 29, 30, 29, keeping the 29 and a half day average pace of new moon to the next, or period, I should say. The pace is going to bring us to 13. Anyway, so that's 354 days. And that is not a year. It's about 11 days different than a year. So what do? Well, after 3 years, you're off by like 33. And so you throw in a leap month. And this is how, generally speaking, all these solely lunar traditions that are honoring the phases of the moon to describe months, alternating between 30 and 29 days to keep the 29 and a half day period, work. You throw in a leap month about every 3 years. And I'm going to get back to that. But let's retrograde back to what I was saying about the year of the dragon. Now that I'm hearing the dragon roar somewhere nearby. Even though there was a wonderful Chinese New Year celebration, and I was at a really cool place while it was happening. And it's not a moment or a day, it's like a week long, right? But it has to do with the phase of the moon. Still, that's not when we shifted into the year of the dragon. As far as like in your birth year, what is your, zodiac guide in that regard, that, so-called Chinese zodiac? It's not about the Lunar New Year, which is what I thought as of last year, but it's actually aligned to the solar terms. What are the solar terms? They are the 24 15-day periods in a year. Why do I have to use air quotes, though I dislike them? Because it's actually the 24 15-degree periods in a year, right? And so many of us know the idea of dividing not only the day from sun root to sunrise to sun reach to sun rest into fourness, right? Sun above the ground going up, above the ground going down, below the ground going down to the roots, and down at the roots coming back up, below the ground coming up, right? Fourness, which, by the way, are aligned to the directions in the northern hemisphere: the roots in the north, the rise in the east, the reach in the south, the rest in the west, and the sun moves clockwise, which we used to call sunwise through the sky. And it's why clocks work like this. And if you have the courage to turn your back to the light, you will see your shadow always in the opposite direction. So when the sun's in the 11th, the shadow points to the 5th, and the shadow will move clockwise too. Now, if you live south of the equator, the opposite direction for you. But still, we have this fourness, right? Well, we have fourness in a year, and we can compare the two, which is kind of the fabric of the wonderful and strange fractal time system that we in astrology call secondary progressions, where we compare days to year. As sunrise is like spring, and midday is like summer, at least solstice, and sunsets like autumnal equinox, and midnight is like winter solstice, right? We have very clear divisions of fourness in so many places on Earth. It's one of the reasons why the Platonic solid known as the cube is associated with the Earth element, perhaps. The cube, the hexahedron. Wait a second, I thought I was talking about fourness. Wait, this thing has 6 sides. And it has 8 vertices. Where the heck is the 4? Well, of course, it is 6 squares. Or kind of squares. Look at that. But look, when we come in here now, we have northeast, south, and west. We also have up and down in the center of it all, the 7 directions. Ooh, 7, maybe not so arbitrary either. But weren't we going to talk about Friday the 13th? Am I just trying to avoid it because been confused by the patriarchy? Huh. Okay, well, let's go back there. We need to wrap a couple things up first, though. So we can divide the year into 4. And typically, as you know, you and I learned, we begin seasons, and seasons shift at equinox and solstice times. And a nice thing about that is, unlike January 1st, it's actually a global moment, right? Like the South Pole of the Earth points to the sun in one moment each year. And that's true for all of us. Like midnight on January 1st, that happens at a very different time in China than it does here in California. Right? And so we get these 4 very principal times of the year as the Earth is orbiting the sun. South pole of the Earth leaning towards the light, Capricorn solstice, when the sun shines directly above the Tropic of Capricorn. We get 3 moons. No, we don't. But 3 suns after that time. The sun is due east of Earth center, where we all connect. And that's why the Pisces-Aries cusp, where the ecliptic norths across the equator, the plane of the year norths across the plane of the day, that's like a global ascendant because it's due east of all of us. It's not due east of China or California. Like we have different rising signs, and any moment we're very far away from one another, right? It is due east from the center of the Earth, which has an east because it has a north and south defined by its rotation, the day. This whole thing is directional. It's earthstronomical. Okay, 3 suns later, the Earth's north pole is leaning towards the sun. That's the sun ingress tropical Cancer when it shines directly above the Tropic of Cancer. They're trying to tell you that the tropical zodiac is not astronomical because the signs don't align to the constellations. Y'all should learn some Earth astronomy. Okay, and then 3 months later, we're coming to this time now, west equinox. Why do I call it that? Because the sun ingressing tropical Aries, east equinox, it's due east of the center of the Earth, the sun on the cross at east equinox time, and then the sun at the west equinox, so the sun ingressing tropical Libra, which in every given moment, not just for the sun there, but 0 degrees tropical Libra, the Virgo Libra cusp, is due west of the center of the Earth, where we are one. The center of the Earth, where, by the way, we measure astrology from. Sid, you asked, may you please get a reading? Absolutely. GeminiBrett.com/sessions is the fast way there. I would appreciate the support, and I would love to have the opportunity to tune into your chart with you. It's a great blessing, this work that I get to do, where I get to connect to so many amazing people. Rosalind asks, is Constellations too advanced for beginners? Absolutely not. There's a bunch of beginners there. Some of the jams will feel next level. I'm sure you're experiencing that a ton. There are folks in the community that have been asking for like a particular place for astro beginners to open up. And that will, although I'm considering kind of creating courses soon. I've been hesitant to. I feel more ready than ever before, like starting from the beginning of astrology and building up to the place where you can actually really synthesize in a chart and help others help themselves by utilizing this cosmic craft. So no, you will find many other beginners in the Constellations community, and you won't be beginners for long because there are amazing peers there that will help accelerate your journey into the starry science. And by the way, around readings right now for a limited time until October 2nd, until the solar eclipse, you can book a solar eclipse special with me if you like. Sorry, not solar eclipse special with me. GeminiBrett.com/shadow to do that. All right, so we can very clearly divide the year into 4 solstices and equinoxes. You know, interestingly, like some traditions, and a great place to hear this is in the Shakespeare, right? Midsummer Night's Dream. Midsummer Night is about solstice, right? So wait a second, I thought solstice begins summer. It does in the tradition that most of us are using, but there's a whole nother tradition that actually the seasons change at the cross quarters, the points between equinox and solstice, or between solstice and equinox. Just interrupted by amazing comments that I want to put on the screen. Diane, thanks for this. So Rosalind, she says, there's something for everyone in constellations, sometimes above my knowledge, but it helps me learn more. The community is the best in accepting all levels of understanding, and the Insta space, which I can't put on the screen, I see from Sounds of Sophia. I'm a beginner and really enjoying absorbing the wisdom in constellations. Thank you both for that. So we can divide the year into 4s, solstices, equinoxes. From there, it's pretty easy to divide into 8s, right? And then we get these cross quarters. So the degrees halfway between solstice and equinoxes. So 15 degrees Taurus between Aries equinox and Cancer solstice. 15 degrees Leo between Cancer solstice and Libra equinox. 15 Scorpio between Libra equinox and Capricorn solstice. 15 Aquarius between Capricorn solstice and Aries equinox. By the way, you'll hear me trying to avoid words like spring, summer, fall, and winter, because that's completely hemispheric. Yes? And I might speak directionally. Eastquinox, Northstice, Westquinox, and Southstice globally describes Aries equinox, Cancer solstice, Libra equinox, and Capricorn solstice, respectively. If we do speak seasonally, so let's go to China, Northern Hemisphere, between winter solstice and spring equinox, the sun visits what we tropical astrologers call 15 degrees tropical Aquarius, right? And that's actually the beginning of the Chinese solar year. So the Chinese calendrical systems go way, way back, and they're utilizing both a solar lunar calendar, moon phase calendar for the timing of the months, alternating between 30 and 29 day months. And you have to do some other stuff there. I'm going to get back to that. But also a 360 degree solar calendar, Earth Sun calendar. And we can divide that into 45 degree slices. So we can divide into 90 degree slices, equinox, solstice, equinox, northstice, westquinox, southstice. The tropical zodiac is completely directional, friends. We can divide those 4s into 8s again. I mean, you've cut a quesadilla, right? But by the way, when you did, how were your slices? Were they equal? Were they even? It's a tricky thing to do. Yeah, let's just put this up real quick. Hey, Gemini Brett. Hey, Blue Lotus 22. Do you think we experience such a flat feeling Earth because the Earth is moving north through the Milky Way, as you just mentioned? We're not moving north through the Milky Way. Well, sure we are, because we are now being integrated into our new galaxy. Perhaps. We're moving north towards Vega and Hercules, which are like all the stars that we see in the Milky Way. At least with the naked eye, you can see the Andromeda galaxy. Everything else is a star in the Milky Way. So let me say you are right there. But is that why we feel like the Earth is flat? No, I think the Earth feels flat because Earth is super dense, right? It's also why of the 5 platonic solids. Thanks for asking this cool question, Blue Lotus. That the hexahedron or the cube was most associated with the earthly element, right? I mean, obviously, as I look out here, I'm seeing the beautiful Mount Tamalpais, the place closer by that I call Solstice Hill. Why? Because the solstice sun sets on the tree that I call the birthing tree. Why? Because that's the longest night where I live, and then the sun is reborn, you see. And so that doesn't look flat at all. But generally speaking, yeah, the Earth feels very flat. I think that's because Earth is Earth and water. Right. I mean, water even more than earthly structures will really take that flat form. So I don't think it's the movement through space because, as you can see, I'm of the spinning ball religion. Um, I find much astronomical evidence with my own eyeballs to support that reality of our planet, and that whole thing that kind of keeps us connected to the Earth is more in that centripetal force situation. The only way that astronomy figured out what's called the apex of the sun's way is because comparing the current star catalog to the ancient star catalogs, we see that the stars around Vega are spreading out from one another, and the stars around Sirius on the opposite side of the sky are collapsing in towards one each other. I mean, super slowly. And just like when you're driving, in a forest road, the trees in front of you seem to open up and the trees in the rear view seem to collapse in on one another. Like this was William Herschel, by the way, the discoverer of Uranus. Also, he wasn't the only one, but discovered this apex of the sun's way. And that kind of northern motion through space is very crucial to my feeling, my knowing of why the directional zodiac works globally, because north and south, like they kind of work differently in the northern and southern hemisphere. And so that's what, like when I see, your follow-up here, it is moving north, help gravity. It would have to be opposite for folks living like at the North Pole than the South Pole, and different for folks in between. So my intuitive response, it's not only intuition, says no to that. But I don't know. It's more that kind of no than a no. What really fun question. I couldn't not go there. So 24 solar terms. Okay, well, you cut the quesadilla in half. So now we have, the sun going up for 6 months, and then the sun coming down for 6 months, or the sun going north for 6 months, and the sun going south for 6 months, turning around at the tropics, solstice. The sun stops at the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn, like the tropical zodiac, named from the Greek tropikos, which means turn around, and you see it in the Cancer glyph, friends. So we can divide it into half. We can divide it into quarters, and now we have equinox and solstices. We can divide those into 8, and now we have not 90-degree divisions of the year, but 45 degrees. And then we can divide the 8 into 24. No, you can't. Right? If you keep having, it's 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 120. It's a very interesting sequence, the second harmonic sequence, the binary code sequence. We've gotten so familiar with it because your gigabytes available to you are 512 or whatever, But the Chinese solar terms divide the year into 24, and there's also 12. There's a statement in Hamlet's Mill. It's a kind of a must read for the mystic and the star students, especially. Says that ancient Chinese wisdom says that the calendar and the pitch pipe are so closely tied that you can't fit a piece of paper between them, or something. I paraphrase. It's a really beautiful quote. Well, why would that say anything about anything? Because the pitch pipe has 12. Why? Because of the harmonic series. Like 12ness is a natural result of number in time, frequency, harmony, number in space. It's a lot easier to see. Welcome to the zodiac. Welcome to creation of all that ever was, is, and will be. Welcome to the seed of life. The 6 around 1, that's 7 to make 12. 6 on the inside and 6 on the outside, phased by 30 degrees, the zodiac. Now, does this form that you see in front of your screen, does that feel like the patriarch's destruction of the indigenous wisdom tradition, or does that feel amazingly feminine? Or everything, both? It has the inner and the outer, the lunar and the solar, the nocturnal, the diurnal, the yin and the yang, right? All here. And we find this sacred shape from the traditions throughout space and time. Why? Because it is the natural thing that results when you play with circles. And while it's very difficult to divide the circle into perfect 16s, for example, 12 happens so easily. And those of you who have actually put the compass in your hand and swept the circles know. And when you do, by the way, you start developing a different kind of connection to number relations than we do when we simply count. So number has quantity and quality. Quantity, 1 plus 1 is 2. In quality, what's oneness plus oneness? That's not possible, for the one is all that ever was, is, and will be. But that one reflects upon itself, and the not two become a reality that relate to one another through three, and then embody and manifest through fourness. Okay, so I did want to speak about numbers a bit today. Let me just finish up a little bit on the solar lunar calendar. It's a really tricky thing to do, and I love to show this with lots of animations, astronomical, and slides that help us kind of tune into the calendar and whatnot. But you're doing a really wonderful job following along, right? So we can divide the year into 24, which might be these 12 on the two hands. It's hard to say. 12 comes from the seed of life. And interestingly, again, it's 6 circles around one of the same radius, right? All centered on each other's circumference. Well, I should say the 6 outer circles are all centered on the circumference of the inner and have that vesica-piscis relationship with their neighbors as well. So 6 around 1, 7, make 12. Like literally birth the zodiac. If you want to create the 12 sliced wheel, you start with your compass. And the rule is not necessarily until the end of the game. And you create 6 around 1, the seed of life. Maybe the 7 days of creation, some suggest. By the way, try to make a circle and divide it into 13. We wish you luck. And you will find that there's no such thing as a regular. What would it be? Tripagon? How do you say 13agon? Dodecagon is 12. Triskadecagon? Triskagon? I don't know. 13agon. You can't create a regular 13-sided shape. Not in 2 dimensions or 3. But as in the plane, the 6 around the 1, in the 3-dimensional space, 12 spheres kiss a center sphere, the 13th. Okay, so let's talk about 13 moons in a year and 13, and with Friday the 13th coming up tomorrow, why it's a goddess number. And back to the solar lunar calendar, back to the solar calendar. So why divide the year into 12s? Because of this. Why into 24s from there? Because 30 degrees is a pretty long period of time. We might just say, hey, meet me at full moon, right? Or meet me at the next new moon or the next syzygy, right? Then we kind of divide the month into 2s, or we can divide the sunths, the 30 degrees of the sun's passage, in half into 15s. And then you get 15, 24 degree divisions. No, you don't. You get 24, 15 degree divisions. You can go the other way, but not here, right? And maybe that's a more reasonable amount of time to play with. Look, we could divide it again. We could get 48 7.5-degree divisions. And then we're getting somewhat close to a week, but we're not there. Weeks are amazing, and they're kind of weak astronomically. So yeah, I mean, interestingly, I found out this year that though Chinese New Year really celebrated the entrance into the year of the dragon, and the Chinese New Year is timed to the first visible moon in the sunset west after the new moon closest to the sun at what we tropical astrologers know as the sun is 15 degrees tropical Aquarius. Like that's a yearly thing, and it helps you calibrate and recalibrate and keep this solely lunar cycle aligned with the sun earth cycle, the seasons. So I was interested to see that, you know, some children were born before the Lunar New Year, the solely Lunar New Year, but we're still born in the year of the dragon, because that actually happened when the sun got to what tropical astrologers know as 15 degrees tropical Aquarius. And this year that happened before the young moon. Okay. Go look into that. Look into the Chinese solar terms. Compare them to the Chinese solely lunar calendar. See how you have to work with both if you really want to keep time. Because what happens again is if you're alternating to keep the phases of the moon as the structure for your months between months of 30 and 29 days, so you keep the 29.5-day pace, well, 12 of those is 354 days. What if we divide the year by the lunation? So 365 by 29.5. And better numbers, by the way, 365.242199 divided by 29.53059. You get 12 and a third lunations per year. You actually get 12.37. Okay, so that's not 13. It's closer to 12, and it's not 12. It's like 12 and a third. All right. And it's about 11 days off from the solar year. So after 3 years, you're off by 33 days. And so you throw in a leap month to recalibrate. Well, you can't throw in a 33-day month because you're keeping your months tuned to the phases of the moon. So depending on where you are in the rhythm, 29-30, 29-30, 29-30, you're either going to throw in a month of 29 or you're going to throw in a month of 30. Right? So let's say you're off by 33 days and you throw in a 30. Well, you're still off by 3. All right. And then so 3 years later, now you're off by that 3 plus another 33. You're off by 36. And you throw in a 29 or you throw in a 30. Let's say you throw in a 29. Now you're off by 7. And after another 3 years, you're off by 37. Do you see how like you can't just throw in a leap month every 3 years? What ends up happening, and it's amazing that these things synchronize. Right? Like if I asked you to synchronize 3 and 4, which sounds like this. Well, this is 3 and 2. This one would have to go twice as fast. I don't have the skills to do that yet. But either way, we know that 12 is the number that 3 and 4 both divide into. 12 is 3 4s and 4 3s. What if I asked you to give me the number that 365.242199 and 29.53059 equally divide into? You know, we'd say, what are you talking? No way. Amazingly, it happens, or it gets very close every 19 solar years. Every 19 solar years, or the sun's journey through the tropical zodiac, is almost exactly equal to 235 lunations. It is a miracle. It's about 2 hours off. And so this 19-year structure, which these days we call the metonic cycle, named after, you know, a white Greek dude, even though, sorry, but it's in the solely lunar structure, back to the Babylonian calendar, back to the ancient Chinese calendars, and from all over the place, right? So well before Meaton, who also cracked this code later. Every 19 years, there are 7 leap months, right? So if it was just a leap month every 3 years, then it would be 7 leap months in 21 years, right? Now there's 7 leap months in 19 years. So you end up having, this is amazing, 12 years with 12 months and 7 of the 19 years with 13. Now I find that to be most amazing. So does the year have 12 months or 13? Yes. 12 of every 19 years has 12 months, and 7 has 13. If you want to honor the phases of the moon to construct a calendar that aligns its months with the months, but you also want to keep that aligned to the seasons of the year because you like things like life, which necessitates things like food. And whether you're nomadic or agricultural, you better honor the seasons too. Okay, well, what about 13? How the heck is 13? How in the heavens is 13 tied to the moon? I thought there were 13 moons a year. Well, my friends, the older zodiacs are not solar. You can't see the stars that the sun is moving through. You will go blind trying. I feel like modern astrology doesn't even know that because we just think it's all on a chart. And the sun is just this amazing circle around a dot. And it just moves, like go look at the stars that the sun is aligned to during the day. Wear glasses. The original zodiacs were lunar. We can watch the moon moving against the backdrop of the so-called fixed stars. And the time it takes for the moon to align to a star and then back to that star, which is called the sidereal of the star month, that's not 29 and a half days. That's the moon with the star of ours. Well, the star of ours also moves much more slowly, right, than moon. Moon moves like 13 degrees per day. Oh, wait, 13? Oh, interesting. And the sun moves like 1 degree per day. So what's the phase angle increase between the two daily when moon's waxing, or decrease when moon's waning? 12, 13, and 1. Well, really, the moon's more like 13 and a third degrees per day, which looks like 13, 13 to me. In that sidereal month, let's say like moon Pleiades. Next month, the moon will occult the Pleiades from some earthly views. How long will it take for the moon to get back to the Pleiades? And the answer is about 27.3 days. Not 27.321, but who's counting? We are. So that's a very different period than the synodic month. That's the lunation. Synod means meeting. So the period that separates the meetings of moon and sun in our sky, 29 and a half days. Okay. But moon star, like moon Pleiades, back to moon Pleiades, or moon Regulus, back to moon Regulus, the sidereal month, which by the way is very close to the tropical month, like moon ingress Libra, back to moon ingress tropical Libra, right? So moon west of Earth, back to moon west of Earth. The tropical zodiac is directional, like so many sacred systems of ancient wisdom traditions, right? They're both like 27 and a third days. Okay, well, how many of those in a solar year? And the answer is 13.37. Okay, so there's 12.37 months in a year, lunations per year, months of phases each year, synodic months, moon sun months each year. And there's 13.37 moon star months a year, or moon through the tropical zodiac, basically moon getting around the earth. Really, it's the moon and the earth dancing together as they journey around the sun. Gray Boy says, what it do? Exactly. So this is time, y'all. And it ain't as easy as the click clock of the tick-tock. You see what I'm saying? But it's beautiful and organic and so real. So are there 13 months in a year? No. But if you're looking at sidereal months, moon star to moon star, there's 13.37. If you're looking at synodic months, there's 12.37. Now, most of the new cage folks that I'm hearing saying that 12 is simply the patriarch's attack on the ancient goddess indigenous wisdom traditions are speaking about months as if they are lunations, phases of the moon. All right, well, that's 12.37. That is much closer to 12 than 13. So don't believe that hype. And more importantly, get out and work the sky. Or many of you here are astrologers, you have software, like simply literally go through the new moons and the full moons each year and contemplate it. So why is 13 a number of the goddess? Because, I mean, some of you haven't been here for this whole long marathon. We're up to 75 minutes now. Well, there's a few places I see that. One is moon moves 13 degrees per day. 13 and a third-ish degrees per day. Now that changes significantly from one day to the next or throughout the course of the month because of the truth that orbits are not circular, they're elliptical. So moon is closest to Earth each anomalistic month. And by the way, that's the month that's closest to 28 days, 27.55 days for moon close to Earth to far to close. It's called perigee to apogee. In a chart, by the way, moon conjunct true black moon Lilith, that's the moon at the apogee. Far moon, small moon, dim moon, slow moon, like down to 12 degrees per day. And then when the moon is opposite true black moon Lilith in the chart, that's the moon at perigee. Big moon, bright moon, close moon, and therefore fast moon, like up to almost 16 degrees per day. But the average over the course of the month, right, moon getting through the stars, 27.3 days, is 13 and about a third degrees per day. And that, by the way, is why that's the arc length of a nakshatra. In many of the lunar mansion traditions, you'll see that kind of 13 and a bit. Longitude, division of the path, right? So the 27 wives of the moon in some of the old, Indian traditions, right? So moon Soma every night will visit one of his different wives. Well, do with that what you will. Okay. So now there are other reasons why 13 and the goddess. And some of that has to do with this, right? So in the human design, we see 5 all over the place. 5 fingers, and 2 hands, 5 toes, and 2 feet. Oh, that's 20. Interesting, because we were at least mentioning some number magic traditions that really have a 20 base root. But there's 5, right? 2 arms, 2 legs, and the 1 head with its 5 senses. So 5, 5, 5, 5, and 5 fingers, senses, fingers, toes, and toes. That's interesting. Do with that what you will. But importantly, 5, and if you draw like a regular pentagon, you actually get to see in that sacred structure the golden number phi and phi, which, like pi, is a transcendental, so-called irrational number. It cannot be expressed fractionally or through a ratio. 1.618, on and on you go. But one of the ways that we approximate is by playing with the so-called Fibonacci series. Some begin with 0. I begin with 1 because there's only 1. But there's 2 types of 1. There's oneness, all that ever was, is, and will be, quality of 1. And there's quantity of 1, one thing, one think. One you and me, but we are each reflections of the one only thing, quantity and quality. So there's really 2 kinds of ones. So for me, that's why the Fibonacci sequence begins 1, 1, or 1, 1. And then you just add those 2 to get to the next number of the sequence. 1 plus 1 is 2. And then the 1 plus 2 is 3, and 2 plus 3 is 5. And 3 plus 5 is 8, and 5 plus 8 is 13, and 8 plus 13 is 21, and 13 plus 21 is 34, and 21 plus 34 is 55, and 34 plus 55 is 89. Does it feel like maybe I've done this before? 55 plus 89, what? 144. 12 times 12. Amazing. Okay. Anyway, 13 is a very key component in that system. Those of you who study this sacred science, right, you'll also know about the pentagonal shape that Venus and Sun, through their conjunctions over the course of 8 Earth years, which are 13 Venus years, that they describe a pentagonal shape in Earth's zodiac. It's a pretty amazing thing. Well, the Pentagon, again, has the sacred numbers of Phi and Phi encoded within it. Study your sacred maths. It's amazing. And Venus and the Sun meet 5 different places in Earth's zodiac over the course of 8 Earth years, which are 13 Venus years. Well, 5, 8, 13 in the Fibonacci series. And that golden number series, right? We can find the golden number by dividing the larger number in this Fibonacci sequence by the number that precedes it. So 3 over 2 doesn't get you too close. That's 1.5, right? And the golden number is like 1.618, and on we go. It's never ending, like pi. But once you get to 13 over 8, you're closer. And by the way, you'll see that structure in pine cones and pineapples and all over the place on Earth. It's also the code that brings spirals like this thing in your ear and your galaxy, and the beautiful form of the fetus in the womb, and the way that many plants unfurl. The Fibonacci sequence will describe the branching on a limb of a tree and its spiral spatial relations and such. On and on we go. I'm sure you've looked into this code. All right, once we get to 21 divided by 13, 34 over 21, 55 over 34, 89 over 55, 144 over 89. Like we get closer and closer and closer to the golden number pi. You'll never get exactly there because it's irrational, which means it cannot be expressed through a ratio, a fraction. But you can get closer and closer, and that's one of the things that the Fibonacci sequence does. And 13 is a very key number to that sequence. And that sequence is very much like, well, goddess stuff, embodied physical stuff. Oh, let me say it more like yin, down and in, involutionary versus up and out, like evolutionary, right? We want those balanced. So coming into the body, we see this in the structure of Venus, who over the 13 Venus years, which are 8 Earth years, has 5 types of kisses with the sun. Well, kisses the sun in 5 places in the zodiac, drawing a pentacle. Also, amazingly, there will be 13 Venus cycles in a sign, like the Aries Venus star point, before that point precesses into the so-called previous sign of the zodiac. The pentacle shape that Venus and Sun describe in Earth's zodiac slowly retrogrades by about 2 degrees every 8 years. And it sets up this amazing truth that there are about, usually always, but not always, it's always interesting when you're playing with ellipses. But there's like 13 Venus star points in a particular sign, like 13 retrograde Venus Sun conjunctions in Aries before that star point will precess to Pisces. That's coming soon in a theater called Us, and will actually bring a great energetic shift and hopefully some return to goddess consciousness. Right. So, I mean, when we hear about, well, the patriarchy destroyed the gods, sign me the fuck up. Because obviously, and we need to, I wouldn't say fight back at all, because you don't, meeting fire with fire only causes more fire, friends. Maybe bring some water to that thing. So it's not about a fight. And it's not something that, however, we should do void of logic, or else you fall prey to these new cage things like 13 is the true months in a year. No, it isn't. And I've taken 3 hours to try to describe that to you. And, it's easy to fall prey to that stuff because these aren't easy numbers. It'd be really nice if there were 360 days in a year and that everything orbited in circles and there were 30 days between consecutive new moons and we had a new moon at the first degree of each zodiac sign and the first day of each calendar month and, a full moon halfway through. So you see these 13 Ophiuchian zodiac folks now. Some of them some of them have the audacity to say this. So I mentioned before the beautiful seed of life. And by the way, in mathematics, we talk about kissing numbers. So you don't see it here in the seed because the 6 are interwoven around the center circle, right? 7 and 6 around 1 make the 12 and 2 sixes. Sixes and the sexes. Maybe you want to go there. Maybe you want to cancel me for saying that word. Anyway, the yin and the yang, the night and the day, do with it what you will. Polarity is a very important thing in the incarnational experience. Kissing numbers would be, you can take a quarter and you can put 6 quarters around it and they will all touch each other, right? So, and if you just take circles of the same radius or diameter, and therefore circumference, on a plane, 6 circles will kiss around one, all of the same size. In 3 dimensions, it is 12 spheres around one. All right, so that's really important and beautiful. And so there's something about 13 being the one. Okay, well, maybe you guys have heard about this whole Christian thing. And that one who said he was the son of man. Maybe that's just an English thing, that weird homonym of son and son. Kind of shows up in other languages too. And the one that travels with the 12 disciples. We've heard other traditions like 12 tribes. That is the sun moving through the 12 signs. Didymus Thomas means twins. Didymus means twins, and so does Thomas in different languages. So Thomas is the one that I call Gemini. And Christ is the light. So we can see 13 as the one that moves through the 12. And who does that most quickly? Not the sun, my friends. And who does it most visibly? Certainly not the sun, the moon. I mean, it's beautiful to track Jupiter through the stars, but that will take 12 years. Okay, 11.86 years, but who's counting? We are. Beautiful to track Venus through the stars, but that's pretty tricky to do because she spends a lot of time in the sun's flames, and at other times so close to the horizon that we can't see the stars because the sun has just set or is just about to rise. It's beautiful to track Father Time, Saturn, through the stars, but you're going to spend 29 and a half years doing so. Moon gets around every 27.3 days on average. And she's the big, beautiful light. I mean, she eats the night, right? Especially when full. But still, following the moon, that's the fast course if you really want to meet the stars. And she moves 13 degrees per day. Now, I was trying to make a point. Where were we? Moving through the 12 signs, or the 27 or 28 lunar mansions, depending on your system. But the systems that use 28 usually use 27 and then a small one. Why? Because the moon around our zodiac, 27 and about a third days. So 27 and then a third, little guy. Or 27 equal divisions, which are 13 and a third degrees. There's the 13, 1/3, which to me looks like 13, right? So there's goddess stuff in 13 because of Venus, as hopefully you heard me describing before. Not only is it the pentagonal shape, which brings us to the golden number, which brings us to the Fibonacci sequence of 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. And on we go. And it's in the code of our body, the ratio of this to this and this to this, and on we go. There is goddess 13 number in moon, 13 degrees per day on average. Venus, again, 13 star points in a sign, and the great cycle of Venus and the sun from Earth's point of view through Earth's zodiac in Earth's sky. So Friday, which traditionally Freya's day, Venus day, Viernes, right? 13. There's goddess stuff in that. So why has Friday the 13th been demonized? Because a bunch of dudes got burned at the stake, the Templars? Probably not. Probably not. Although, there's a lot of rumor that those cats were much more into goddess traditions, and sometimes it's hard to see, and how can we really? And I'm not the one to say. But how many powerful women were burned at the stake? And how can we take the beauty of Friday the 13th back? Well, some suggest you do it like we did in ancient days, which is lock the doors and make love all day long. So if that's an option to you, celebrate tomorrow with consent. All right, but let's talk about today, y'all. What about 9, 12, 24? All right, well, the 12, the signs. And do I need to show you the seeds of life again? They're all over the place around here, by the way. Let's wear one. This one, by the way, has been charged by the Pleiades on a very special day. And my daughter Maya, named for one of those Pleiadian sisters, one of those daughters of Atlas. Maya, so let's get to nines. Because in many of the number magic traditions, we don't 12, we 9. Now, some expand that to 12, but many just 9. And maybe it's best to show through examples why 9 is everything and nothing. Okay, because 9, 12, 24, we get it, 24 hours in a day. And there's a reason for that. And 12 signs in a year, 12 hours of night and 12 hours of day. This brings us into the old Deccan traditions from Kemet and much more. There were actually 12 or 24 hours a day in China and Egypt and Babylon. How the heck did that work? Were they connected? Did they come from the same Atlantean tradition? Did they have the same teachers? Or is that just some kind of natural way to crack the cosmic code? It doesn't seem so arbitrary, that. Okay, but what about the 9? Fun fact, I live on 3684 May Road. Feel free to send stuff by. Richmond, California. It's one of the reasons why I was like, this is our house. There's also 7 cedars out front for the 7 planetus, the wandering stars, right? Which are Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon, from far to close, yes. But the address 3684, a thing I loved about that is 36 is a 9, and 84 is a 12. And so, of course, the whole thing is a 3. What? Okay, so let's play numerology. And there's many ways to pet the cosmic cat. There's many ways for number play too, right? So astronomy, the measurable side of the sacred sciences, right? The measurable heavenly happenings, number in time and space. So we should root ourselves in number and space, which is geometry, and number in time, which is harmony, and both of them clearly show or sound 12ness. And then number itself, which in the tradition of the quadrivium, they called arithmetic. That might give you nightmares to hear that word. That kind of feels like 1 + 1 = 2, and 2 × 3 = 6, and 1 + 2 + 3 = 6, and 1 × 2 × 3 = 6. Wait, what? Try to do that with another 3 numbers. Okay. Anyway, there's something about 6ness, y'all. Queen Bee knows. So do the crystals, especially that gigantic one beneath our feet, from which the signs of the tropical zodiac emanate, at least according to my religion. Why 9? It's a base 10 thing. So I can't do this yet, but I'm wondering if I was in a base 20 system, right? So that was utilized by the Maya, for example, the people we call Maya. We don't know their name. Do you know that? Archaeologists and anthropologists have named them after a specific location called Mayapan, near Merida, modern day Merida. So that's interesting. And by the way, I should maybe not speak to that, but that's something I've heard and I'm not sure about. So please go source that one and let me know. Teach me. Our Maya, our baby, is not named Maya, although I'm a Pyramidiot and I love so much some of those sacred sites in Yucatan and Quintana Roo and into the jungles like Palenque. It's a very important place for my heart and a great journey that Anna and I had when our love was young. But rather, our baby Maya is named for the Greek Maya, Maya. That's Ma, right? But by the way, again, 3684 May Road, the month of May, I'm told, was named for Maya, who was the mother of Hermes. By Jupiter, by Zeus. And that's Maia. And that's going to matter significantly when we play with number magics. All right. So Linda, I see you wrote, damn, just back from the beach, missed the beginning again. Well, the good news is we're just getting to the point. Venus asks, what's her spelling then? Yeah, in English, it's just like that. Maia. Okay. Now I can't do her full like name number numerology yet because we actually haven't filled out the paperwork and we haven't really decided on Maya's name. So we might do the Zaharia-Joseph thing. That's her mother's last name hyphenated and then her father's last name. It's going to be pretty tricky to squeeze onto the jersey, you know. I kind of like creating a new name like ZJ, Jay-Z. I don't know. Like we had a middle name that came to us in Hawaii, and then we're just not sure about it. And we're heading back to Hawaii to celebrate her mother's birthday in November. And so maybe it comes in then. I guess we get a year before they just like call it or something. But at some point, we need to create like her full name, right? So she can become a prisoner. I mean, sorry, a citizen. And what's it going to be? We're not even sure, which is fun. But I can work with her first name, Maia, and play with number magic there. We can play with the number magic of her date. So many of us do this through what are called digital roots. Some call it like Pythagorean reduction. And I'm just going to speak in like a base 10 system. I really want to start practicing this in other numerological bases, like a base 12 system. How would that work? Or a base 20 or a base 60, like the sexagesimal system that was used in ancient Babylon. I mean, I'm like, you can see I'm a nerd and I love my maths. Like that's like, I can't even fathom. But it'd be good for me. I'm going to do that sometime. Anyway, let's talk about base 10, which is everything repeats after 9, right? So, I mean, you learned how to add 364 and 22. We draw them on a line and put the ones digits with the ones and the tens with the tens. And if the numbers are big enough, the hundreds with the hundreds and the thousands with the thousands, we can get into the tenths and the hundredths and, you know, past the decimal point, named, of course, decimal for dec for 10, right? And it's like a 9-base system. Now in the Pythagorean tradition, you know, maybe you're familiar with the Tetratus, right? Which is 1 dot and then 2 and then 3 and then 4, which is kind of planes of creations, this triangle. So oneness, two-ness, three-ness, four-ness, and then you get 10 altogether. But there's this 9-ness in the system. And as I was saying before, 9 is everything and nothing. Okay. So for example, let's do let's do one of you. Somebody put up your birth date, and I need like day, month, and year, or month, day, and year. And just throw it in the comment section, and we'll play that game. And if nothing comes in, that's fine. I was talking about our address here, which is 3684. And I can play with that number, or I can play with Maya's birth date. So mystical risings, thank you. Somebody named Risings should be first to this mystical number play. So we have March 27th, 1983. Fun thing there, right? I was just talking about 27.3 days in the sidereal month. That's good stuff. 83, by the way, is the amount of years for the Jupiter synodic return, which, by the way, is not a 12. 7 Jupiter returns in 83 years. Okay, so we can play with, okay, the month, the date in the month, 27. So that's a particular number, but 27 is a 9. Okay, how does that work? What? Because you just reduce to a single digit by adding numbers together. So the 27 is 2 plus 7 is a 9. We already have for the month, March, 3, right? And then what about the year? So 1983. And I'm not going to get into like the numerological codes of what is the day versus the month, and the day and the month, and the day, month, and year versus the year, and that. So there's a lot of different ways to pet the cosmic cat. And like, this isn't a numerology class, which I should maybe not teach anyway. Or maybe I should. But let's do 1983. So you do 1 plus 9 plus 8 plus 3. What is that? 1 plus 9 is 10. 10 plus 8 is 18. 18 plus 3 is 21. But that's not a single digit number. So we further reduce the 21 as 2 plus 1 equals 3. Okay. So March is just the 3. The 27 is 2 plus 7 is a 9. The 1983 reduces to 3. It's digital root. Okay. So now we have 3, 9, and 3, which is a 6. How did I get there so quickly? I want to tell you. But first, let's add them up. 3 plus 9 plus 3. 3 plus 9 is 12. 12 plus 3 is 15. And then we reduce that 15 number to a single digit. 1 plus 5 is 6. So mystical rising 6 is a number for you. All right. Well, what does it mean? What does it mean? I'm not going to necessarily play that one today. Let's go with Mani here. 5, 27, 67. 5, another 27. So some would say here, both of you were born the 27th day of the month. And in that way, you're like number siblings. And Shauna, if she just waited one more day to be born on April 27th, would have been with you. Okay, so Mani, 5, 27, 67. Well, that's 5. 27 is A9. 67. So we need that to, who was it, 1867? Was it 1767? And by the way, I'm clowning myself because I talked about, let's get into 9, 12, 24. Well, today's actually 9, 12, 2024, if you're into that whole Gregorian trip. And that matters because 24 is a 6, but 2024 is an 8. You dig it? So Mani, 527, 1967. So we have the 5, the 27 is a 9. 1967, 1 plus 9 plus 6 plus 7. 1 plus 9 is 10. 10 plus 6 is 16. 16 plus 7 is 23. We further reduce 23 to 5. So we get 595, which is a 10, which is a 1. How did I get there so quickly? Well, I'll show you. But 5 plus 9 is 14. Plus 5 is 19. And then the 19, we can add the 1 plus the 9 to get 10. And then the 10, we add the 1 plus the 0 to get 1. Okay, you're always going to reduce down to between 1 and 9. Right, so now Mani says, right, 19. Well, there's some traditions that will say if it's within 22, because they want to compare them, like in this case, to the sun card. Why is the sun card 19? Because the metonic cycle we were speaking about before, which probably should have been named for older folks. 19 solar years is 235 lunations. The synchronization through 12 12-month years and 7 13-month years of Earth, Sun, solar years, and Earth, Moon, Sun, the phases, okay? But like in the Pythagorean number magic tradition, as it's often referred, we're going to further reduce that 19 to 1 plus 9 is 10, and then 1 plus 0 is 1. Right? So there's a whole constellation of 19, 10, and 1, all in like the ones. And I can see that 19 is a 1. Why? Because you can just throw 9s away. No, you can't. But they are everything, and therefore nothing. What? All right, so let's play that game a little bit. So as I said before, I live on 3684 May Road. And Maya was born right here at this house. And supposedly May is named after Maya, the mother of Hermes. Well, 3684, I like to see it as a 9 and a 12. 84, 8 plus 4 is 12, and 12 signs, and 36, 3 plus 6 is 9, in this whole number game that we're playing here. It's crazy that we don't get to learn this thing about digital roots in school. It's actually something that some mathematicians use, and it's really brilliant, and it's necessary to the fabric of many of these kind of numerological systems, not all of them at all. So 9 and 12, and then the 7 cedars up front for the 7 planetes, the wandering stars. I was like sold, right? And then I took a walk at night when I came to visit again, and there was like literally stag with its antlers lit up by a full moon behind it, and an owl flew right by my face, and I'm like, yeah, this is the place. So 3684, well, let's like add them all up. 3 plus 6 is 9, plus 8 is 17, plus 4 is 21. 21 is 2 and 1, so we reduce that to 2 plus 1 equals 3. Now, I could have just done 8 and 4. Is 12 is 3. What? Because 9's everything, and therefore nothing. Why is it everything? Well, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8. All of the numbers before the 9. If you believe 0 is a number, then add 0 in there, but it's not. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8 is hard to say, but it equals 36. And 36, 3 plus 6 equals 9. So 9 is everything, meaning that it is the number, it is the sum of all of the numbers before it. Well, the sum of the numbers before it, 1 through 8, which, by the way, is 8 factorial, is 36. And that's not 9. It's 9 times 4. Do you know all the 9s produce digits that themselves add to 9? I just showed this to Koa the other day. He was freaking out. He's learning his times tables and stuff, you know. So 9 times 2 is 18. Well, 1 plus 8 is 9. 9 times 3, 27. Well, 2 plus 7 is 9. 36. 3 plus 6 is 9. 45 is a 9. 54. Oh, that's 45 flipped. Is a 9. 63. Wait, that's 36 flipped. Is a 9. 72. Wait, that's 27 flipped. It's a 9. 81. 18 flipped. It's a 9. 99. It's a 9. So 9 is everything because the sum of the numbers before it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, is 36, which is a 9. It's also 9 times 4, and I think we were just talking about 4-ness on Earth. Okay. Well, why is 9 nothing? Let's do 19. What does it reduce to? 1. 1 plus 9 is 10. 10 is a 2-digit number, so 1 plus 0 is 1. Let's do 29. It's a 2. 2 plus 9 is 11. Now, some people stop there because 11 they call some master number, right? Okay, fun. But still, 11 is a 2-digit number, so 1 plus 1 is 2. Well, 29 is a 2. What do you think 39 is? 3 plus 9 is 12. 1 plus 2 is 3. 39, 3. What do you think 36372184554 is? And it's a 3. Well, how do I know? Because I intentionally spoke a long number that had a bunch of 9s in it. So anytime you see a 9, you can throw it away. And that doesn't only mean the 9s themselves, like this 9 in 1983 and Mystical Rising's birth date. That 27 is a 9, out. The 9 in 1983, out. I can take a 9 out of the 1 and the 8 in 1983, out. And I'm left with 3 and 3, which is 6. Remember how we got the 6 for her? Mani, that 27 is a 9. It's out. Now, she didn't show 1967, right? So that 9's out. So now I'm left with 167, which is 7 and 7, which is 14 and 5. And we have 5 and 5, which is 10, which is 1. Now, there's some reason to not just throw nines out like willy-nilly, because you might get to different kind of master number placements if you're into that kind of work, all right? But here for Shauna, where we see the 26th of April, 1970, well, I can put that 9 away. I can take the 7 and combine it with the 2 and let it leave. It's a 9, like let it go. So now I'm left with 4, 6, and 1. And that's 11, and that's a 2. Let's go long form. 4 plus 26 is 30. 30 plus 1970, some do it that way, is 2000. Well, that's 2 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0, 2. All right, so like go play this game when you're out walking around and just throw nines out of there. Right? So look, July 26th. So let's write that 726. Well, there's 7 and 2 gone. 6, 1974. Throw that 9 out. So I get 6, 174, which is 10 and 8, which is 18, which is a 9. So Sheila, you reduce to 9 in this particular system. 12, 24. Perfect. Because we want to celebrate 9, 12, 24 in this long number play jam. All right, well, let's play that game. What's 1 plus 2? 3. 3 plus 2, 5. 5 plus 4, 9. Gone. And I'm left with 1958. Some call that your generational number, the year you're born. Like there's a generation of people born a year. Anyway, 1958 has a 9 gone. It's 1, 5, and 8. It's 6 and 8. It's 14. It's a 5. Let's go long form and see if we can get to that same place. What's 12 plus 24? 36. 36 plus 1958. I do that as 34 plus 1960, which is 1994. 1 plus 9 plus 9 plus 4 is 10 plus 9 is 19 plus 4 is 23, which is 2 plus 3 is 5. Yeah, I've done this a bit. And I'm a nerd. And I love my maths, all right? But do this some. Like when I walk around, what I do is license plates and hubcaps. Right. And so I'll just do the numbers on a license plate and I will reduce them into a single number. Then when I look at hubcaps, I like to start learning visual geometry. Is that hubcap pentagonal? Is it a 5? Is it a 7? Is it 10 or 12? Those ones are kind of ugly, but they are there. And I love 12ness, you know. I'd rather see 12 and 6 because 2 6s is 12. That's like what the seed of life shows us. And just the sexagonal or hexagonal structure looks kind of prettier than the dodecagonal when you're in a hubcap. All right. Okay, well, what's 13? It's a 4. Interesting. Does it help us come to Earth? And so I didn't finish this thing before about the sun moving through the 12 signs as 13, or importantly, you are the center of your chart, the center of Earth, but you are on Earth, right? So you are 13 within the 12. And when I was going to clown before is I've listened to some of these 13 sign people say, you see, the 13 is the center of the 12. So 13 signs. Pardon me, but you dumbass, that's 12 signs with the center of 12. Like, what? My gosh. Okay, if we get into 13 divisions, which is the 13th harmonic, well, that will tell you something. And by the way, you cannot divide the wheel by 13 equally. What's 360 over 13? And the answer is 27.6923076923076923076923. Now, we do have fun little numbers show up in that thing. And it's not the first so-called virgin, that's 7. The first number that cannot divide the 360-degree circle equally. The 11 is the next. They cannot divide the sign either. Okay, well, then the 13. So anyway, there's something very important about 13, which won't conform. It's not rigid. It's not regular. That doesn't mean it's not beautiful or perfect. But part of its perfection, this starts with 7 and also is in the realm of 11. Part of the perfection of the 13 is it will not equally divide the sky. Well, the 13 sign folks, they're all about that. They're getting their signs from the International Astronomical Union, which is laughable because they vehemently hate astrology. They've actually, I believe, seeded the thing that's turned into this 13 sign religion, which people claim is like ancient with no evidence. And they must have never swept a compass, yet one of the most popular sacred geometry teachers on Gaia TV is the 13 sign, dude. It's like, wait, what? Like, how does that it's very difficult for me to see that. By the way, I should have shown this when we were talking about 13. And we are. 13 is a beautiful thing. I don't have triskaidekaphobia. I ain't afraid. I love 13. And for the reasons I described before, absolute goddess number. And so when I see 13, I see in that, and I love that 13 reduces to 4 because there's something so earthly in 4. And by the way, 5, like this beautiful one we see on the screen, for me, 4 is what I call the noise, and 5 is sound. So there's one only thing, it reflects upon itself, the not two are born, 3 ties them together, the Holy Ghost. It manifests through 4ness into this world with north, east, south, and west, or however that wants to go. If a tree falls in the woods and no one's there to hear it, does it make a sound? No, it makes a noise. It's vibrating the medium. It's here, it's manifest. It's maybe even wiggling pine needles. You know what I mean? Of course it is. A tree fell in the woods. But did it make a sound? No, because sound is the experience of the noise. Maybe it made an infinite amount of sounds because there's so many there who are here to hear it. Does it have to be a human ear? What about a squirrel? What about the wiggling of that pine needle? You know, are they hearing it? That's up to you. But once the noise is heard, it becomes sound. And that's a very unique and individual experience. That's, for me, what the 5 is about. And that's very different than what you'll hear in many of the numerology systems or number magic traditions. Which is why I say I shouldn't teach numerology, and I should. I have a very different approach because my connection with numbers comes through sweeping circles, and it gets you closer, I feel, to the quality of number versus just the quantity alone. Like, people will say the 1 goes first and that it's like a lonely thing. Well, 1 is all that ever was, is, and will be. And actually, by the way, I feel like we should play with quantity and quality. Shauna loves this topic, and so we get to see this date, which is the birth of somebody very special in her life. All right, well, 7, 2, that's gone. That's a 9. So a 4. Pretty easy one there, right? Or we could do 7 plus 0 plus 2 plus 2 plus 0 plus 2 is 13, which is a 4. So, I mean, if we play with that in like Tarot traditions, which is where I first started doing number play like this, thanks to Angelus Arian's The Tarot Handbook. That was kind of one of my first like presentations of a mystical tradition, and gifted to me by my dear sister Hillary, who's amazing. Then that 13 would be compared to the death card of the Tarot. Well, does death in 13 have something to do with this banishment of the number 13? And then it would further reduce to 4, the emperor. So in some systems, the 13 would be said to be a personality number, and the 4, the soul number. But most just continue to reduce from 13, unless it's like an 11, 22, 33, something like that. All right. So my daughter was born on June 16th, 2024. Okay. Well, 2024 is an 8. Just know you're in an 8 year, which is a cool thing to play with. And you can, by the way, take your day and month. So I'm born October 24th, 1975. That becomes 11, becomes 2. But now my birthday will be on October 24th, 2024. So it's good to know you're like, I'm October 24th, 1024. That's 1 plus 2 plus 4 is 7. It's good to know that as well, because then you can play with it throughout the years. So in an 8 year, the 7 and the 8 will be 15 as a 6. But I'm still working because I haven't had my birthday yet. I'm still in 2023 for me, right? Well, 2 plus 2 plus 3 is a 7. And I carry around a 7 with October 24th. 1 and 2 and 4 is 7. So 7 and 7 is 14 is 5, right? So I'm like a 5 year. Well, my name is 5 too. What? Depends on the language you use and the system. Many ways to pet the cosmic cat. You do you. I'm realizing I have no water. Oh, let's just let hot water become cold. Don't let me drink that for a little bit, all right? All right, well, Brett. And actually, you know what? I'm going to start with my daughter's name just because it's a lot easier. So typically what you will do here is you will write out the letters of your alphabet. Okay, so if you were born in Russia, use the Russian alphabet. I'm embarrassed that I can't remember the name of that alphabet, right? So I'm like, if you were born, you know, if your name is a Hebrew name, use that alphabet, right? If you were born in Greece, use the Greek alphabet. There's not 26 letters there, are there? Oh, you forgot to tell me. It's a little hot. But I was born here in the States, and capital letters on my birth certificate. Prisoner, anyway. And thanks, Monty. Acrylic for the Russian. And so I'm going to use the English alphabet, which has 26 letters. And by the way, the middle letter is what? What's the 13th letter? M. But you know, there's two middles of an even number thing. You'll learn that when you start playing with hubcaps, by the way. So M and N. And the point between them is actually the center of the 26 letters of the English alphabet. But 26 and M is half the way there. So M is 13. Or there's 13 and 13. M is the end of the first 13. N is the beginning of the second 13. But we're not doing 13s. We're doing 9s. Okay, so come play with me. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. There's your first 9. I is a 9. It's like crucial to remember. I is a 9 and R is a 9. How do I get to R as a 9? So A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. Wait, A, B, C, D, E. E is 5. H, I. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Okay, let's try that again. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. There's our first 9. Okay. J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R. R is the second 9. Right? So knowing I and R is 9 is helpful. Or you can go from there. J and S, like A, are 1s. J is the 10th letter of the English alphabet. Well, 10 is 1 plus 0 is 1 when we play with digital roots. S is where we must be the 19th letter of the alphabet. Because 1 plus 9 is 10, and we further reduce that as 1 plus 0 is 1. Right? So I is the 9th letter of the alphabet. R is the next 9, which means R is the 18th letter of the alphabet. Okay, so like my daughter's name is Maya, M-A-I-A, right? Well, M is 13, A is 1, I is 9, A is 1. So 13 plus 1 is 14, plus 9 is 23, plus 1 is 24, and that reduces to 6. And it can get tricky, especially when we're not writing these things down, right? You're just listening to a guy just like spit out numbers, 8, 16, 9, 24, 4, 3, 2. See, it's a 1. It's like, what? Nerd. Pardon me. That's rude. Be good to yourself. But so again, it's just gonna be easier if you take the 9s out of it. And you'll miss some of your master number opportunities if that's like the number magic you like to play with, and do you. All right. But for now, let me just say that I know that I is a 9. So M-A-I-A, I can just do M-A-A, M-A-A, right? So 13, 1 and 1, which is 15, and 15 is a 6. Okay, so I did it right with a 9 in there too. Let's do Mani. Now, many will say start with the name on your birth record. I assume this is not, right? But M is 13, N is 14. Okay, I is a 9, throw it away. A is a 1, so MA is 14 and N is 14. So we have 28, which is 10, which is 1. Anybody else want to play? So let me play with Maya's birthday. So I'm just going to write here. So Maya is a 6, right? M is 13 plus A is 1. That's 14 or 5. Plus I is 9. 5 and 9 is 14 again. Well, it's like I could have just thrown that 9 away. So 5. And then the A is 1. So 5 and 1, 6. Okay. And 2024 is an 8. Well, what about 6, 16, 8 then? Check it out. Maya's born on 6, 7, 8. Isn't that fun? Like if we do this that way, and many do, where like the day of the month, the number of the month itself, and then the number that the year breaks down to are all significant. So she gets 6, 7, 8. Fun. Well, what's 6, 7, 8? It's 6 plus 7 is 13, which is a 4, plus 8, which is 12, which is a 3. Okay, so her name is 6. Her birth date is 3. And she's born at 36, 84 May Road. And 84 is a 12, is a 3. Her mother is a 3 as well. Her father is a 2. When we play with the birth dates, 10/24/1975 is me. It's weird that we lived in Arlington when I was born, but Arlington is actually a family name. It's my father's middle name too. So this is my codes if we play English language and also Gregorian calendar, right? So this is what I love so much is people who are like hating on the Gregorian calendar as some patriarchal thing that's intentionally taking us out of harmony. So we will be forced to forget the 13 moon goddess indigenous culture, which means, by the way, that they haven't done the math, and more importantly, they haven't actually experienced the cosmic cycles. Right? Get this out of the head and get into your experience. And that's the beautiful thing that this astronomical sacred science offers that many others do not. Okay. But anyway, people will like bash the Gregorian calendar and then brag about their numerology. It's like based upon their Gregorian calendar name. It's like, okay. And I mean, the thing I often refer to there is it's like the conspiracy theorists who will tell you that the moon is hollow because when we shot the Apollo lander back at the moon, it rang like a bell, having placed seismic sensors on the moon's surface, right? But like you can't have that conspiracy theory, which is great, on the same page as the moon landing is fake. Because you can't tell me that the moon is hollow, and we know that because of the moon landing, and that the moon landing didn't happen. Right? So did Stanley Kubrick on his like Hollywood stage shoot the moon lander at the fake moon? You see what I'm saying? So if you're going to bash the Gregorian calendar, you probably shouldn't use it for your numerological play. I'm just saying. But you do you. Right? Okay, so 10/24/1975, how does that break down to 2? Well, let's do it. 10 and 24, it's a 7. 1975 itself is 10 plus 75 or 10 plus 12, which is 22, which is a 4. So I end up with 7 and 4, which is 11. Some stop there. It really depends on how I go about it. Some say like the Pythagorean traditions, you break down each one. So 10 would be a 1, right, for October. So October, like January, is a 1, even though Oct sounds like 8 to me. Anyway, so 1, the 24 is a 6, and then the 1975, I can throw the 9 out of there, and I get 1 plus 7 plus 5, which is 13. It's a 4. Okay, so that I'm 1, 6, and 4. You add those all together, 7 and 4 is 11. Right, so some would say I'm 11 and then 2. The Lust card, if you use the Crowley deck, which is what I was first using because of the Tarot Handbook by Angelus Arian, but I've kind of since shifted, where 11 then shows up actually as balance. that one works for me. I do have a Libra 5th. Some of you astrologers will know why I went there and what to do with that. Okay, anyway. Because I'm Gemini Brett, or at least I am since I had to create a name for myself. And interestingly, Gemini Brett, like Brett Arlington Joseph, is a 5. And I didn't know that when this name found its way to me. All right, let me just say one more thing. Like, there's another system, some call it the Indian system, where I'm not going to break October down into 1, and 24 down to 6, and 1975 down to 4, and then add 1, 6, and 4 to get 11. I'm going to add 10 plus 24 plus 1975 and then reduce that. So let's do that. 10 plus 24 is 34. 34 plus 1975 is what? I mean, the way that I do that is 1975 plus 25 is 2000. And 34 is 25 and 9. So that this whole thing goes to 2009, which itself is an 11. But sometimes you can use one of those systems and it will get to like a so-called master number of 11, 22, or 33. Master. But the other one won't. And that's kind of a fun thing to check out, to play with a bit. Okay. Well, Gemini Brett, it feels like a lot to do. But whatever, let's do it. E's a 5. A, B, C, D, E, which means G is a 7. So GE, Gemini Brett, GE is 7 and 5. It's 12. M is 13. So 12 and 13 is 25 is a 7. I is a 9. Throw it away. N is 14. 7 and 14, 21. 21 is a 3. I is a 9. Throw it away. So I'm at 3 for Gemini. Okay, let's just keep that there. What about Brett? B is 2. R is a 9. Throw it away. E is 5. So B is 7. And then what about T? T is 2. So 7, 2, and 2 is an 11. That's a 2. So Gemini is a 3. Brett's 2. Gemini Brett is 5. I'm not going to do that for my first name here. And by the way, you know, there's apps you can use that can help you do that stuff. But I feel like my mission is fulfilled. I felt a little... Did I feel guilty? I didn't feel guilty for not being able to go live yesterday. That's how it is. Baby in the house and all. But I just missed this opportunity to... So thanks for the present of your present. Thanks for the participation that many of you have offered here. Let's do one more. Let's do like a full name and a birth date. Let's put this up. Diane Warren. Thanks, GB. Off to Ashland to hang with Venus and Freya and Shakespeare for the energy of 13. Awesome. Ready for the 4 and the 5. Also, my name number. Big hello to sweet Maya, who is too cute to spook. That's fun. All right. Does anyone want to play? Does anyone want to put their full name, right? That includes your middle name, even if you feel for some weird reason that's a bit embarrassing. And then also put your calendar birth date, and we'll do an example. And if not, we will just shut this down, which I better do anyway, because I have a reading starting very soon. Okay. Okay, so in the Instagram, so I'm going to have to type this over here. We have Selena, goddess of the moon, Elaine Frame. I never knew about the Elaine part. Selena, by the way, who sent a box of amazing fits. Maya is rocking on the regular. That means, by the way, that she's wearing really nice clothes that Selena sent her way. Selena, thank you for those. And I think you sent the book. That's her favorite book that has the dragon and the lamb and the mirror and the koala bear on one side. Was that you, Selena? Do you know? Crunchy book. Well, I love that so much because, as I've said before, Maya, was born in the year of the dragon. Her brother Koa was born in the year of the ram. And then we often call Koa koala. And then, of course, the mirror page would be Maya because she's looking at herself. Right? So that book really does her sibling situation super well. Mystical Horizons School, what about a business name and birthday? Yes. And wow, I haven't even done it for my business name and birthday. Yes. Oh, and Selena, you sent that book. Awesome. It's such a great fit for us. Okay, so now that I typed your name in, I can put it up here and we can work this together. Oh my gosh, we have a lot to play with. Let's do the birth date first. That's gonna be a lot easier. Let's do 1982. So many of you will be 1982 folks. 1 plus 9 plus 8 plus 2 is 10 plus 10 is 20 is 2. Now, by the way, we could have just thrown out the 9s. 9 is a 9. 1 and 8 is a 9. So you just get 2. Do you see how that works? Do you see how much faster that makes things? So the 11, of course, is a 2. 1 plus 1 is 2. The 30 is a 3. So you get 2, 3, 2. 2 and 3, 5. 5 and 2, 7. Let's go about that another way. Let's go 11 plus 30 is 41 plus 1982 is 2023. 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 3 is 7. And by the way, if you just feel like that's like too fast, you will get that quick at this if you do it a lot. And so I do license plates. I do license plates. I do only the numbers. And then I do only the letters, which takes more time. And my dog is like, dude, why did we stop? And then I'll do the numbers and the letters combined. License plates, hubcaps, the best. But I'm a child of Mercury, so of course I'm going to use cars for math. All right, so Selena Elaine Frame. Are we ready for this? Remember again that I and R are 9s. And therefore, J and S's are 1s. That can be really helpful. So S, Selena, 1. E is a 5. L, I don't know. But I know M is 13, and I know L comes before M, and I should love L because I love 12. So L is a 12, right? So we have, but 12 is a 3. So SEL is 1, 5, 3. Well, 1 plus 5 plus 3, 9. Throw it away. All right, so we're left with ENA. Well, E is a 5, N is 14, and A is 1. 5 plus 14 is 19, plus 1 is 20, which is 2. So Selena, 2. Selena. Okay, Selena's a 2. That's fun. All right, we're on to Elaine now. And we just learned L is 12. That's helpful. E is a 5. L is 12, which is 3. 5 and 3 is 8. A is a 1. 8 and 1 is 9. ELA gone. So I'm left with INE. I is a 9. N is 14. Well, the 9 is gone, by the way. So now we're left with 14 in the M. No, in the N for Elaine. 14 is N, and E is 5. 14 and 5 is 19. Throw the 9 away, it's a 1. So Selena is a 2. Elaine is a 1, if I did this right. And then let's go frame. All right, well, E is 5, so F is 6. R is a 1. 6 and 1 is 7. A is a 1. 7 and 1 is 8. M is 13, which is 4. 8 and 4 is 12, which is 3. E is 5, and so 3 and 5, 8. So 2, 1, and 8, which is 11, which is a 2. All right, so you're like me. Gemma, Brett Arlington Joseph actually is a 5, so you're not. But my birth date breaks down to 2. Your full name, if I did that math right, and everybody check me, especially you, Selena, is a 2. And then we found that 11/30, 1982 is 2, 3, 2, or 7. So 2 for your name number, 7 for your date number, if you're into the English language and that whole Gregorian trip, and to base 10 mathematics. All those things seem potentially arbitrary, but what I can tell you certainly is not, is the day and the year. The great year of precession, although we're not so sure about the math. And that 6 around 1, the 7 makes 12. And that there's a very important reason for 12 for 24. And hopefully our play today, at the end of this jam today, gave honor and space to 9, and then also remind you just how to celebrate your Friday the 13th. See you in space, friends.